Namaste, Namaskaram, Vanakkam, Adab, Sat Sri Akal, Salam Alaikum. A warm welcome, good evening, good afternoon to everyone, all our audience in Facebook Live as well as on Zoom. Today, this is December and this is the first show of the week. Welcome of the month. Welcome to the 28th episode of the Nurse Talk Show. Before I start, just a quick forward of what's happening this December. We have two shows, this episode 28 and 29, and the concept is Fir Bhi Dil Hai Hindustani, which means we have nurses whose hearts are Hindustani, and definitely they are currently out of India, or we have international nurses with a heart of gold for India. And we end this year with a 30th show, which is Impact Factor 3.0. And the last Friday is Christmas. And when we talk of December, it's Christmas, it is snow, it is Western countries, and all those memories that come back to us. So with this, I would like to introduce the core team. And today on the core team, this is Sridevi, the moderator, the host of the show. Host of the show. And I have the pleasure of introducing actually somebody who never introduces themselves. So we hope to see Rupa. Is Rupa around? Rupa is there still? Rupa? Okay.
Hi everyone. Thank you very much and welcome to the show. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Can you tell your name, please? Your name is never heard on the last 26 episodes.
Hi everyone, this is Rupa. I'm a proud nurse and a passionate nurse. And thanks everyone for giving me this opportunity to announce my name first time on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Rupa. This show is the brainchild of Rupa Rawat. And we have reached 28 shows. Stick team. The rest of the members will introduce themselves. Chris?
Hi, I'm Thomas, an assistant professor in psychiatric nursing, and welcome you all to this wonderful episode. And welcome you, Swami sir. We are really excited to have your first speaker as an international speaker. So we hope you can inspire many youngsters today. Thank you and welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Rekha?
Good evening, everyone. Myself, Rekha Anil Kumar, a passionate nurse more than 2.5 decades. Presently, I'm working as a psychiatric teacher, College of Nursing, RML. Thank you.
Okay. On this picture, you can see Dolma. Dolma has got an audio problem, but she is a part of our core team. Then there is Geeta. Geeta is also a little busy. And then definitely, last but not the least, we have Mrs. Uma Handa, my teacher, and the you of the show. Ma'am.
I think you have already introduced me. Do I still need to? Well, I'm Uma Handa. Yes. I'm Uma Handa and I'm a retired nurse. But I still love nursing and I keep from morning to evening. I'm all the time busy with something or other which is going on, especially these days with that NNMC, which is really getting a very hot issue today. So I retired about 12 years back after doing various types of jobs, not only nursing, but many other things also. So here I am for the show and looking forward to hear you, Sati.
Thank you very much, Uma ma'am. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce the guest of our show. And to introduce, can I have the next slide, please? Chris? Is Chris around?
He has to be. He's a ghost.
He has become a ghost. Okay. So Thippeswamy, Bilahalli, or I call him Thippe, but most people call him Swami, is a nurse currently working in Homerton, London, in United Kingdom. Thippe is a graduate from Karnataka, from Bapuji College of Nursing, and is currently the lead nurse at the allergy clinic. Yes, lead nurse at the adult allergy services. He reached here after 20 years. So he's been working very hard his way through nursing in UK. He left to UK exactly in 2000. We have many other people who have joined us. So before I start with Thippe, where is the slide, Chris, for Thippe? That's all it is?
Yeah, I think, Chris, that's all it is, isn't it?
Okay, fine. So before I start, I would like to welcome our audience on the Facebook and on Zoom. We are very, very happy and we welcome your appreciation. We welcome your critique. We welcome your remarks and suggestions. And we are more than happy to hear from all of you. So as you join us, we would like to start the show. So I know Thippe for probably over 20 years, and today he has chosen this topic of love and care, essence of love and care in personal and professional, personal and professional front. Now, when he chose this topic, I was very much kind of pushed to do what I am doing today. I'm not the usual moderator of this show, Rupa is, but Rupa has some personal reasons and she was being pushed into a fix, and that led the team to realize that she needs to have a break and we probably need to continue and the show must go on, doesn't matter who is in or who is out. So the topic that Thippe chose has given me an insight into walking the talk. So here is love and care for Rupa. Thippe, we would like to hear your passion with which you are trying to tell us about essence of love and care in personal and professional services. You could continue with your stories, and when there is some time or when your stories are almost up, we have a series of questions to ask you. So all set. Listening to you, Thippe.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Hello, everyone. Like ma'am said, I worked as a staff nurse 20 years ago in Manipal Hospital. That's when I met ma'am. It's a great privilege. When I have 3 stories to share in my lifetime. My very first patient and 2 patients that when I worked as a charge nurse in respiratory unit. I start off with these stories and then you can ask me the questions. My very first patient was a 16-year-old with acute myeloid leukemia. I was a first-year nursing student. It was my first placement in a medical ward. He had fever. I didn't have a clue about what acute myeloid leukemia is. All I knew is he had temperature, very high temperature. And he was going for his 10th exams and he asked me, all his family were around. I went to take his temperature and he asked me, brother, am I going to get better? I said, of course you're going to get better. It's only a matter of fever. Once we give you paracetamol, you'll get better and you'll be able to go home and write your exams. It's only when I came out and I spoke to one of the medical registrar, he told me that he's got leukemia. We don't think he's going to make it. It was shocking. It was shocking. I burst into tears on the day. That's where I found myself a real nurse in me on the day when I saw the patient. I was with him. I was trying to console him. I couldn't say him this news that he's going through this problem. I was not qualified enough to say that news, but I was glad that I was there on the day with him when he was going through that pain, when I was suffering. I was able to help him. I was able to nurse him, provide him that care. That was one story. The second story is, this is when I came to UK. When I was 28, I got engaged to my wife and I went back to England. I came back to England and I was on my first shift, a long day. It was around 8 o'clock in the evening. A 48-year-old lady was admitted with lung cancer. We broke the bad news to her on the day at 3 o'clock. We had an extensive meeting for 1.5 hours and we told her you got a metastatic lung cancer, and the expectancy was 6 months. She was due for chemotherapy, and we gave her all the options and everything. She was quite upset. The whole family was there, and all family members left at 8 o'clock. This is the lady I knew for last few months, because she had recurrent admissions. And at 8 o'clock, when the family left, I went to her bedside and sat next to her and said, how are you feeling? Quite upset, quite devastating. I could see the pain in her. She said, leave my disease, it's okay, let's talk something else different. I heard you got engaged. How do you find your partner? I said, yeah, she's good, I love her. Was it arranged or love marriage? I said, I knew her brother, and I came to know her through her family, and yes, I do love her. And she asked me a reverse question. She said, do you love her, or do you really care for her? So I said, one and the same, right? I said, when I said one and the same, she said, no, not really. You might love so many things, but you might not care about it. So, for example, you might love a food, but you end up eating it. But if you really care about it, you look after it. And I said, okay, that's really puzzled me. Have a think about it, do a reflection, and come back and tell me tomorrow morning. So I went home to my hostel, thought about it all night. I was really puzzled, and I really wanted to go back and ask her what it meant. Believe me or not, next day morning when I went for the early shift, she was dead on the previous night. She arrested and she died the previous night. So I couldn't get that answer from her. She was only 48. So she left me with this question mark. What is care? So, love is something that we think it's just, love is the word that we use only for intimate relationships. But we do have this love for profession. We do have love for our friends and family. But at the same time, caring is something that is unconditional, along with love. You try to protect it irrespective of whatever happens. You don't expect anything. You don't expect anything back. These are the values that I learned from my parents. Being the eldest in the family, born to a middle-class family, you automatically become a nurse. So I started to discover this care and these values, and I started to reflect on it. I tried to find an answer every day in my patients. And then the second interesting thing was, the second patient I wanted to talk to you about was, I always had it in my mind that, when a patient comes to hospital, if they recover and go back home, that's when you've done a good job. And if they die, that indicates our failure. So there was this patient, I looked after for 5 years. She had lung cancer. I knew her very well, and she always wanted to be in this main ward. She never wanted to be in the side room. Even though she was neutropenic, she was always demanding for main ward. I want to be around people. I want to be around. I said, okay. This time she was quite terminal, and I could see the pain in her. She was on morphine pump, but that wasn't touching her. She was in extreme pain. So then I spoke to the medical team and I said, she really needs some additional morphine. Well, unfortunately, we can't give it in the wards. We can only give it through the pump. I said, I'm happy to do it. I'm A&E trained. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to monitor her. I couldn't see her gasping. I couldn't see her suffering. So we gave her a morphine and she was settling down, but she was not very comfortable at all. And she wanted to say something. and she wasn't very comfortable in the main ward. So I said, let me move you to a side room. I moved her to the side room. I kept her comfortable. I was holding her hands, and the husband was sitting next to her. And I left for 15 minutes, and I went back. She was dead. She passed away the same day, and the husband said thank you, and obviously we were all upset, and that's the end of it. A year later, exactly a year later, the same gentleman, the husband, walked into the hospital and said, he wanted to speak to me. I said, have you come for an appointment or something? He said, no, I came to see you. The time that you left last time, when my wife was dying, you left her for 15 minutes. And she told me, can you please make sure on my first death anniversary, go and see Swami and say thank you to him. So then I found the answer for my first question, the 16-year-old boy. So it doesn't matter. They don't have to be, at the end of the day, what matters is to be with them as a nurse during their sorrow and pain and joy. And so that's what I call a real nursing, and that's what I call love and care. It doesn't have to be conditional to your family or anyone. Don't expect anything back. You do it unconditionally, you will get the reward. You will, so that's what I'm privileged. I'm privileged to have this experience, this patient. And I learned that, success always doesn't mean that they have, if they die, as long as they die peacefully, as long as they have that quality, end of life quality, that's what matters. I'm open to questions now, ma'am.
One second. Oh, I had not muted myself. One second. All right, Tipe. So these were the stories of you being a nurse. So you wanted to tell us how care and love in personal and professional life is something that you experienced. And so tell me, why did you reflect on this topic? And okay, fine. Why did you reflect on this topic? Did you think this was one of the most striking times of your life?
Striking. Love and care, something is, it makes you, it's not something that is written in the textbook. You don't find the answers to all your questions. If you really care about something, you really think outside the box. You always have to think about, if you worry about your patient's care, you're really passionate about it, you will always find a solution if you have that vision, if you have that commitment, and if you really want to do it. I'll tell you another example of how we achieved something that I was thinking of by thinking outside the box. This was in when I started my nursing as a TB nurse specialist. That was my first role as a nurse specialist. This is over 10 years ago. I was working in a clinic where there was a high incidence of tuberculosis in that area, in London. London contributes about 10% of the whole UK tuberculosis. So okay. we were thinking, we had a lot of DNA. Patients were not responding to the treatment only because of their lifestyle. There was a lot of drug addiction, there was a lot of prostitution, there were a lot of people who were homeless, undocumented immigrants. They don't have a fixed abode, so they were living in the streets. They were all over the place, and the government don't have a funding for these patients. So we thought, there is a saying in English: if you always do what you always done, if you always get, you always got. So we were thinking something different. So let's do something different. Why don't we put them in a hospital? The protocol of the hospital is, if someone has got an infectious disease, you have to admit them for the whole duration, because they're not going to be compliant otherwise if you send them out and they don't have a place to live. But that was costing extortionate amount. It was costing around £50,000 to treat a patient for 6 months. So we thought of a better solution. So if you find a place, a room, all they need is a room, and they're not going to be infectious for the whole 6 months. You give them a bus pass, you find them a private accommodation, a room, and you rent the room. A room would cost you only 500 pounds per month, whereas a hospital bed cost you 500 pounds per day. So we pitched this idea to the council and said, can you fund us 5,000 pounds? We will treat these patients in 6 months. They said, this is a ridiculous idea. We said, let us trial it. So we managed to treat all these patients by housing them and providing them an incentive for food vouchers, for providing bus pass, and also rehabilitating them at the same time, providing them the education and training that we can enroll them. So whatever we could through the social services, we were able to achieve that. 98% of the patients we were able to treat, and we were reporting 200 to plus cases every year, and we brought it down within 3 years. We brought it down to less than 100 per year. So this idea was pitched in the parliament, and we said, this is a brilliant idea. I think you should consider this across UK. And this was presented in the parliament, and we've been awarded for the best team in the UK for such an innovative idea. Now that's been amalgamated into nice guidelines that, housing the people who are homeless is part of the TB guidelines now. So things like that, I have a strong passion for nursing, not just here. I love.
That was my next question, Thippe. So before that, I didn't introduce you very much. So I thought in between I will do this. Thippe is known to me because he was my staff nurse, and then we had Orissa floods somewhere in 1998 or 1999. He had
1999.
99. That was huge, yes. The Orissa floods, and then Manipal was sending a team, and Thippe was on my list because one thing is we can only send male nurses, and he was in the emergency, and somehow I had this strong, I work a lot by intuition that he would probably fit my bill and will do a good job, because see, nursing directorate sends somebody, it is representing nursing. So Thippe was a part of that kind of that flood relief program. I remember we had sent somebody else also, 2 or 3 people.
Henry Marshall.
Henry had gone with us. Okay, with you. Thippe, I needed you to tell them the story in UK on all your roles, because I didn't tell. Like when you started in 2000, you started in the tuberculosis clinic, as you're saying. Can you tell us the journey of your respiratory care, and then how you landed up in allergy, because that's fair enough to know your story of 20 years.
Can I just tell you something interesting about that Orissa flood incident that you selected me?
Yeah, sure.
So I was only 8 months into Manipal Hospital, and I just finished my night shift, and Henry came and woke me up and said, Sridhavi madam wants you. And I said, I'm back tonight. Why does she want me now? And he said, no, you're not going to work tonight. We are going to Orissa. I was shocked. And why me? So we all met in chief exec's office, and chief exec was only 6 months into the position at the time, and I asked this question openly and says, there are nurses who have got more than 10-15 years of experience. Why did you select me? And Nessa Joseph said, the chief executive said, well, to be honest, I wanted to go, but because you are senior to me by 2 months, Sridhavi said, I would let you go. But it was an interesting experience. When I got there to Orissa, it was a disaster by me. To get there is a disaster on top of the disaster. And we were in the army accommodation and the second floor. We've seen bodies everywhere, the carcasses everywhere. And we were running out of food and medicines. And we had to go and queue up in the district hospital every day, and we get there by 8 o'clock. By the time we get our medicines, it's like 12 o'clock midday, and by the time we get to the village, we could hardly see people and all that. So it was getting dark, so we were unable to utilize the full time that we had. And in the evening, when we got back in the van, there was two old men standing in front of the army quarters, and they could see me screaming. Me and Henry were screaming and shouting, sharing our experience with each other, because we were split into two teams, and we were talking to each other. And then these two old men came to me and said, "Young man, you seem to be very, very angry. Tell me what's happening." And they didn't introduce themselves. They just said, "What's happening? Tell us what's happening." And we shared everything. And one was the principal secretary to the Prime Minister of India, and the second one was the Army General. So we told them about all the corruptions that was happening. Believe me, within 15 minutes, they took over the whole of Bhubaneswar Stadium, the relief camp, everything, the district hospital management, everything was taken over by the army. And the Prime Minister Secretary called the health minister, and everything changed. The next day, they both came with us to relief. They came with us in a van, and they said, "You know this Nayak movie where Anil Kapoor goes and sacks as a chief minister? I have seen that in real action. I have seen sacking a medical officer in real action. That was the real Nayak moment for me. That was really an amazing experience." And he told us one thing: under no circumstances you're going to introduce me as the principal secretary to anybody. I just want to go as an ordinary person, and let me see what's happening, and then we'll take action from there. So yes, that was interesting moment.
That was
okay.
That was amazing. That's amazing, Tippe, because see that should give courage to many people. Here all the time in the show, as we hear people saying, if even in here recently, my students were saying, nobody listens to us. Everybody talks about change, but nobody listens to us. Finally, even in Oman, the students tell this, and I keep saying, change doesn't happen overnight. Change needs persistence. Change needs us to keep at it, and change needs us to be bold. So you unknowingly were bold enough, and you saw that, right? So this is a big message for people who listen to us. Yes, continue, Tippe. Sorry.
I agree with persistence approach. I'm a strong advocate of patience. My very first clinical placement, one of the sisters, I went and interrupted her in the linen room because she was busy making up. She was doing her makeup. So she wanted to give me a punishment. So the punishment she had was a patient who had a chest strain. I was walking around everywhere, going out for a fag and everything. And she told me, "Can you go and give a bed bath to the patient?" I said, "Why should I give him a bed bath? He's walking around everywhere. He's able to wash himself." And she wouldn't have me. She will not take a no from me at all. And she called the supervisor. I said, "I'm not going to give him a bed bath for somebody who's walking around." And in the end, "No, you have to give a bed bath because the sister told." So I said, "Okay, here is the thing." I went with the mop and I told him, "Look, I know you're walking around everywhere. This is the mop I'm going to use, and they want me to wash you with it. Are you ready for it?" He ran.
You took the floor mop. Did you take the floor mop and go and tell him this?
"This is the mop they want me to use, and they want me to give you a bed bath because you got a drain. Although you are able to go out and have a fag and have your breakfast, the usually bed bath is given for somebody who's unable to get up and need help. So what do you want me to do?" He said, "No, of course not. I'm going to do it myself." So I was kicked out of the clinics because I embarrassed the supervisor and the staff nurse. But I stood my grounds, and I
this is excellent critical thinking. I think a lot of people, a lot of students can learn to think smartly like this. This is a great example of critical thinking. Tippe, let's come back to why.
When I came to UK, ma'am, one of the things that I had was when I started my career in UK as in any emergency medicine, and one of the things the overseas nurses, it was quite a new initiative at the time in UK, recruiting nurses from abroad. But when I saw the system here, it was like they were like 10-20 years behind what I've seen actually in Manipal Hospital in Bangalore. And it only because there was a system in place, but the waiting time was so long. Patients were waiting like 16 hours a day to see the consultant. The staffing level was so low. And I used to say, if I have a patient with a head injury, within 15 minutes, the patient would have had a CT scan and the neurosurgeon is ready to review the patient. Oh, how come it is taking so long for get a patient from one hospital to another hospital? But that's because of the resources. They didn't had. So I said, a patient comes in, they check them in. You do the triaging, and then they don't do any bloods. They don't do any secondary triaging. They just wait for the doctor to see them. So some patients may even die if you don't do the secondary triage. If you don't do a follow-up, they might die in the waiting area. I had a 24-year-old boy with the PE sitting overnight quietly with chest pain. He had PE. You only come to know after 24 hours when they saw him next day. So this was really, why don't you introduce a phlebotomy service where the nurse will only do phlebotomy and they will take the bloods. By the time the doctor sees the patient, the results are ready and they can make a decision by then. So that system was introduced in here. And there are some of the skills that I learned. I was able to change the suprapubic catheter when I came here. And the A&E was like, what? We don't even do normal catheterization. You are able to do suprapubic catheter. I said, I used to take 6 arterial blood gases on an average per day in Manipal Hospital. You know what the average turnover in my hospital was? 47 patients, 50 patients was the highest. But despite of that, we were able to see the real emergencies. The system here, you have like an outpatient service. Only 10% of the patient of what you receive is the real emergency. Rest are all like an outpatient service. But that's how the system, you have to work around it. But you have to change the practice a little bit. And that did change. Believe me, the hospital where I worked was out of the top 100 hospitals. We were 97th on the rank. And since making that changes, we were able to achieve the top 5th position in the hospital.
Wow.
In the whole country. Yeah, they put enormous amount of funds to the hospital A&E because that was needed. That was what was needed. And they said, you change the practice a little bit, that does help. And it did help. We showed it by figures. And I have this passion about every time I'm not satisfied with the results. Sometimes you say you are the victim of your own success. See, once you achieve it, what is next? That urge to do something never changes. Even when I go to India, every time I go to India, I want to visit a hospital, I want to visit a college. 2 things I always done in the last 20 years. Because I want to see what is happening. Anything has changed this time? Has any difference has been made? How are the students coping? How are the hospital staff nurses are coping? And I talk to them. I learn a lot each time. And I come back and share this experience with my friends. Believe me, it's not just me. All my friends and colleagues who are working abroad, they all feel the same. And equally, the students and the staff in India also have the same feeling. They have the strong passion to do something. Majority of them want to change the practice, but they just don't have the clear direction or the support. I think that is what is lacking. So if we can achieve that, if we can provide that support, definitely we can improve public health sector, and that's what I'm working towards at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, so that's actually, there are 2 things I want you to continue with. One is this, now you have come to the topic of Fir Bhi Dil Hai Hindustani. That means, what are we seeing? Like, what were the things that you gained in UK that you think we need to share? This is one question. Second is, from the emergency, where did you reach? There are 2 parts that you have to take this.
Yeah.
Eat it and then come to the second one.
First thing I learned when I came to UK is there is something called as independent and interdependent practice in nursing. Whatever I learned in India was a dependent practice, which is what I followed all the time. So there is, although I studied in the textbooks about the interdependent and independent, but I was not able to follow that because of the system that we had at the time in India. And I do believe that it still exists because I hardly see any movement since. Here you have the dignity of labor. You have the support, you have the value, or your contribution is valued. Whether you're a cleaner, you're a nurse, or a healthcare assistant, or a consultant, everyone is treated equally. and everybody's contribution is valued by each professionals, and that's what makes you you valued as a team, and that's why you're able to achieve more and do more. And I had that experience of fortunately I had the very good support from the management, and they wanted one of the questions they asked me in the when they were recruiting me for UK. One of the question was, what would you like to achieve in the next 5 years? Where I said, I want to sit in your position where you are in next 5 years. um, and I clearly remember her name, and I did manage to achieve in that 5 years period, and they recruited 400 nurses from the hospital where I worked, and I was the first Indian nurse to get my first promotion within 6 months. Because I just wanted to do my duties. I didn't do it for the position. I just carried on doing what I had to do, what I believe is the right thing to do. And definitely, if you have that persistent approach, we can achieve success. Then the reason I moved from A&E to the ward environment is not because I wanted to change. My leadership was needed in the ward, and that was when they introduced this modern matron in UK. My ward manager, who was in A&E, he became the modern matron for medicine. He said, Swami, I really need you to go and work in the ward because we need your leadership there. We are setting up some new non-invasive procedures in the wards, and we really need you to take over the ward. So I went there as a senior staff nurse, and they supported me for respiratory course academically. And I also did my post-graduation certificate in research and practice development at the time. There I was, I don't know whether I should say fortunate or unfortunate. Usually you have a band 5, band 6, and a band 7. Band 7 is the ward manager. So band 6, there will be two team leaders. They're like a deputy ward managers. And when I joined the ward, there was a ward manager, and I got the promotion. I was a band senior staff nurse, was a E grade, and then within 6 months they gave me band 6 position. But then within the next 3 months, the band 6 or other band 6 decided to completely give up nursing and go and do some volunteering. And the band 7 unfortunately lost her dad, and she didn't want to work in the respiratory ward because her dad died of COPD, and so she decided to go somewhere else. So I was left. I was the junior most band 6 running the ward, directly reporting to the assistant director of nursing. So that's the responsibility I had, and it was too much, but I was able to do it because of my passion, and I was able to do it because of the support that I was getting from my seniors, and especially my friends as well, that you can do it. It wasn't difficult. I never felt the pain because I had the support from my seniors. So then after 6 years, one thing is that once I get saturated, I wanted to move on and do something different. So I believed that ward management was not my lifelong plan. So I wanted to explore the nurse specialist role. So I have a strong passion to teaching and specialist nursing. So I decided to do the dual role when I joined this TB nurse specialist post. I did that for 10 years. Like I said, we did that project in TB, and we achieved that for 10 years. And then I wanted to change again. Then when I approached my line manager, she said, okay, why don't you try the allergy? So that's how I ended up in allergy. Now I'm leading a team of clinical nurse specialists in my team. And the patient satisfaction survey of my department was 65% when I took over the role. The very first day when I joined, when I went to work and as an allergy lead nurse, all my CNSs were off sick. I was working with a consultant. There was 175 messages for the last 6 months that were unanswered because there was not a system in place. So right now, I've been in that post for the last 2 years. our patient satisfaction survey is 98%. And we were able to achieve, they were seeing 1 or 2 day cases per week. Right now, we see 16 to 20 day cases per week. So we were able to generate more income. I was able to recruit more nurses because I was able to produce that business case. They said, why did you become a lead nurse? You should have become a service manager. I said, that's my next goal.
By measuring, see, this is another message here. See, this is something that we always don't do in, definitely don't do much in public hospitals in India. I stand corrected if I have a difference. In corporate hospitals, we do definitely try to measure just because we want to make claims and advertisements. But what he's trying to say is we measure and we make changes. This is exactly what, it should be a natural corollary, but we don't seem to be doing this. So his case of 65% satisfaction, 1 or 2 patients a day or in a week to 98%. See, numbers actually don't tell lies. Normally, we might think of it, but this kind of numbers just simply impress people. And this is something that we could always do, even as at our levels, whether we are staff nurses. It's easy piece of work to be doing. So I think you have done a good lot. By the way, he just told me, Thippe told me, and he's not telling you, he is doing another postgraduate diploma course in allergy, because what the National Health Service in UK wants to do is, they honestly, I don't know whether I can tell this in public, they actually are trying to replace consultants with nurses. So here comes the nurse specialist roles. So if Thippe actually now completes this postgraduate diploma, he will replace a consultant, and the cost to the unit becomes much lesser. And usually there are plenty of research that show that nurses providing service provide a large amount of satisfaction, because you talk to patients, you teach them, you let them do self-management, and you really care and follow them up. So Thippe, if you want to continue and say one more line on that, so that, I don't know whether I'm 100% correct in what I say.
Well, essentially, a consultant is paid per session. I'm not talking about the salaries here.
Yeah.
Each consultants are paid per sessions, and the nurse-led service, allergy service, is a tertiary care service that is not available in every single hospitals here. It's there are only 100 or 115 allergy units, and not every single allergy unit has got the dedicated drug allergy as well as food allergy testing facilities. Some just do basic testing, but they don't completely complete the whole process of challenging and all that. So we have that facilities. And the reason I wanted to increase the capacity is because we have the potential, we have the unit, we just not seeing enough number of patients because we don't have the consultants. So because the consultants have their own clinics, and if you want to relieve the consultant from their own clinic, the only way you could do it is one of the nurse to take over their role and replace them by a nurse specialist. So in order for you to achieve that skill, you have to have the academic qualification of allergy. So I said, if I need to do just a qualification, just to tick the box, I only need to do a module. I said, I would rather do, when I've done a degree, I don't want to go and do a diploma module. I would rather enhance my skills by doing a master's. And if I can complete that module, if I'm able to independently run a nurse-led clinic, then I can replace that consultant completely. So that would give him additional 4 sessions per week. So that means he can see another 20 patients per week. That means each patient's consultation is 300 pounds. So you multiply that by 20 patients. So that's what you achieve. Second thing is, if you recruit a one band 6 nurse, additional band 6 nurse, it would cost the hospital 40,000 pounds. Okay, so whereas if you by bringing that by paying that 40,000 pounds, if you can increase the day case capacity to 5 patients extra per week, that would give the hospital a 90,000 pounds additional income. So this is how you need. We did the calculations.
So you become maths with you from nursing. Because I always think that we need to be broader approach. Yeah, if you don't have a broad approach, the nurses remain the way they are. Yeah.
on the other side, you have to look at the patient's waiting times. You don't want to go.
Yes, true.
If somebody knows they're allergic to something, you don't want to leave them for another 3 months or 4 months in the waiting list for them to be tested. So you want to bring down that waiting time. If you can only see 2 patients per minute, that means the waiting time is going to go for years. So you want to increase that volume. So you have to. Initially, my thought was patient focused, and then later I realized.
Yes. Yeah, we need to come back to Dil Hai Hindustani. So I stopped there because yes, I have this UK experience. This is for people who haven't been to UK. I don't know how many of you understand this. I had once a stomach cramp after taking Voveron, diclofenac. And believe me, for 5 hours in the ER, nobody saw me. This is the system in UK. 5 hours. You can stand in front of the hospital and the stomach was like, I thought I will die with the stomach pain that I had, but nobody saw me. So unlike that is why you should see some of these things are better off in India. If you have money, at least you get to see a doctor. One remark that came, somebody wrote to me saying that they are trying to do patient satisfaction and improvement services. I think in All India Institute, I see this from Dalma. Coming back to Thippe, now tell us, this is our theme, Fir Bhi Dil Hai Hindustani. Tell us, where did you start? As in, we want to know your contribution or your efforts with your colleagues, because I am also a small part of this. Where did the thought come from? What are we doing? And what is it that you're contributing to India? So can you tell us about this?
Yes, this was 2017 when I came back from India, and I thought we need to do something bigger. Every time, like I do a 1 or 2 sessions here and there, and we all have got this ability to do something bigger. I think we need to come up with a bigger project. So at that time, I put something on the Facebook, inviting everybody to see that we can do a mega project, come up with the topic, and do a survey across India, and let the audience speak. Let the audience choose the topics. So we did a national survey in 2017. And designed some questions and asked the nurses, nursing students, and the teaching faculty what is that they want to learn. So we had about over 800 respondents, and they told us this is what we wanted to learn in India. So based on that, we designed a conference, an international nursing conference, inviting all these participants. There was about 1,400 people in altogether. And we wanted to launch this project called as early warning scoring system. It's so that's what we recruited some hospitals as well to design this program. We were going to provide training to these hospitals as well as provide resources to these hospitals, and these are all teaching hospitals. So we chose 10 different hospitals to launch this EW scheme. So far, we achieved this. This is up and running now in one of the hospitals. Currently, we are doing something similar for the nursing students as well. This is another project that we are launched now. Essentially, because of this COVID incident, and the digital platform is getting increasingly popular now. So we thought, why don't we create a digital platform and get the curriculum from the universities and design the topic that is useful to students. And also we were able to implement this early warning scoring and other things in the Indian clinical nursing settings. So the one is the International Nursing Conference. That is an ongoing thing that we do it probably once every 2 years. Unfortunately, the second one was due in January next year, but due to COVID, it got cancelled in Manipal. But I'm sure they will come up with another different place. But the student nursing teaching is still happening. In fact,
just started, right? Just tell them that
yes. I mean, the meeting has been happening for last 3 months, but starting from tomorrow, we are launching. We got the curriculum from the colleges, and we're going to teach the students. We are going to do pre-course evaluation and post-course evaluation, and we give them the participatory certificate. At some point in phase 2, we are planning to do exams as well. So we have some other projects, but we want to test the water to start with and see the teaching programs. We have designed about 15-20 topics. Every 2 weeks, they will be running just like the talk show.
Right. So this I hope is clear to everyone. What Tipe is telling us, they few of them colleagues. Actually, one of them maybe we will be seeing next week. So few of them who are Indian nurses, they have got together in the UK. They are all connected to each other as friends from the region, and they know each other. So they are starting to help university students in India to learn what is the latest or what they think is missing in the curriculum. So like for example, early warning score is something that even for us here, it is only about 5 or 6 years old. It has been there for much, much longer, which is something that students must know about and probably is not taught in the curriculum. So tomorrow they have their first session. They have tied up with Parul University is in Gujarat, and they will be talking for an hour or an hour and a half to the students. So the experts, the Indian nurses who in the UK who are experts will talk to students and to faculty about topics that are new to Indian situations or are probably not given adequate significance. They may not be in the curriculum or in the practice. So this is something that they are trying to do. So that is their contribution to India. This is something that we need to know. Okay, what inspires you to do this, and why do you think you want to do this? You are now in UK, comfortable, 20 years. What does it matter? Or how does it matter?
You can take an Indian out of India, but you can never take the Indian inside him. That's what it is. That's what makes me to do this.
Okay, that's a.
So
is that the same that everybody feels? Yes, true. So this is something I wanted to give as a dialogue. You can be outside your motherland, but in your heart, the motherland you carry with you is very hard to get out. So this is what he's trying to tell you. So that's a good inspiration, Tippe. I would I really appreciate that thought, and I hope you continue with those kind of things. What do you think? Like, no, you as a male nurse, like one thing is, why did you become a nurse? Tell me that now. It's a little bit late, but I want to know, why did you choose nursing?
Like I said earlier, if you're born to a
just because you're the elder. Yeah.
That is one thing. Second thing is, I always wanted to be in healthcare.
Okay.
I wanted to in healthcare. I had the choice of doing different things, but being the eldest, you have to think about future investments and all those things, and you have to support your dad and offload his responsibilities. So all these things, and one of my dad's colleague, he was his professor, in fact, and he said to me, "What is that you want to do?" I said, "I have two things in my mind. One, I want to be in healthcare. Second, I want to be a teacher." And he said, "Okay, if you do the nursing, you can do both. So why don't you do it?" I said, "Okay, that sounds good." So that's how I ended up doing nursing. I never turned back. I don't think my mom was very happy, but she's very proud now when I joined as a nurse, because male nursing was not that is something popular those days. But she feels very, very proud of where I am and what I am now. And my dad has always been a backbone of me, and like my mother. I am, but nursing is that something that I'm very, very passionate, and I think I had it in me, but now I'm able to express it a bit more.
Okay. So that's interesting to know, because I remember Thippeswamy, for the young students who are Rekha students are here. Thippeswamy came as a fresh graduate to my hospital where I was the director of nursing, and I was very, very choosy. I can tell you that I remember I used to get thousands of applications in a month, because it depends on the standards of the hospital. The phlebotomy team that he's talking of is one of the first things that I introduced, because nurses were actually wasting their time. Instead of talking to patients and caring for patients used to think of nurses as Dracula, because all that they did is in the night, in the early morning at 5 o'clock, go and collect blood from patients who are sleeping. And this was an impression that they gave me when I first surveyed patients, and I decided this is not. I introduced a separate phlebotomy team, who would collect blood so that nurses, I mean, it's also not the nurse's responsibility, honestly, to collect blood, etc. Then it causes a lot of issues. So he's telling you that he remembered the phlebotomy team when he went to UK. So he came as a bright-eyed, no experience graduate, but somehow I saw I'm glad I identified the right spark, and then he has not looked back. But it was not for every graduate, but depending on which college they came from or how they showed interest where it was very, very important. So that's good to know, Thippe, that from there you have come a long way. So 20 years in UK, and that's all you did, right? 2 years in Manipal.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, less than 2 years. Yeah.
Yes, that's what. 2000 was when UK opened up to
Yeah.
taking nurses. So is there anything else that you want to share? We have exactly 4 minutes. What is your take home message? Okay, I had a very important question. What are your personal, what is the topmost things that you gained professionally, and what are the topmost things that you lost personally by going to UK? Is the question clear? What is your personal loss by going to UK, and what is your professional gain by going to UK? If I put you in a tough spot, that's it.
Yes. I mean, okay, I'll start with the loss. The loss is living far away from the family. There is a saying in Kannada, allide namma mane illide summane. That means my house is my house is over there, but I'm here just for the sake of it. So that's how the feeling is, because you miss your family, you miss your close relatives, you miss your friends, and you miss a lot of occasions and all these things. But that's the loss. And I'm someone who is very, very close to my relatives, and every time I go there, I try and see as many as I can. Even my own parents would have not seen them in the last 1 year, but when I say I want to go there, I haven't seen them for last 1 year. Why did you want to go? Let's do it. Just because I want to do it. So that's how I feel it. I'm quite sentimental in that aspect. So that's the biggest loss I have. In terms of gain, one, I get a lot of time being abroad. You get to reflect a lot. You get to reflect about the whole thing, both as a personal life as well as a professional life. And in professional wise, I'm able to achieve and do whatever I wanted to do in life, to the society or to my profession itself. I'm able to practice what is there in the books. In the fundamentals of nursing textbook, we still read. In India, we still read abroad books, but we don't practice abroad style of nursing. But I was able to practice here. I'm proud that I'm able to practice it, as well as now I'm able to. I can now focus my rest of the career, and sharing my practice with the rest of my countrymen and other nurses in India, which is what I want to do.
So that brings us to the last 1 minute. And what is your take-home message in terms of essence of love and caring in your personal and professional life? That is the topic that we had for today.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, you might love so many things, but it's important to have that care and preserving your passion, and you go with your instincts. Listen to what your heart says. Yesterday, I had a student who came to me and said, "Sir, I've done my master's. I'm not quite sure what to do. Whether I should come to abroad or whether I should come work in India." I said, "What is that your heart says? Write over it where you want to be in the next 1 year and 5 years, and come back to me and tell me, and I can give you the advice." So I'm not a great advocate of people to come. I won't advise them to come abroad and all these things, or I won't stop them doing that either. They need to listen to what their heart, and see what they want to do, what they want to achieve. But even if you decide to come abroad, please take that message, whatever you gained, you please share that with your fellow countrymen when you go back each time. you remember that that's the only contribution that you can do. If I can look after a patient here, if you look after a patient abroad, and someone else will look after your parents back home. So that's how I see it.
Okay. You think you will be rewarded in an equal and true measure for everything that you do.
And I have plenty of examples, madam. I have plenty of examples. If I put a message today that last week my mother-in-law needed a blood test, I'm in a lot of nursing groups, my students, my nurses, and other things. My mother-in-law needed the blood, and I put that message. Within 3 minutes, somebody responded and said, when do you want me to go and give it? I mean, this is little help. Little help makes a huge difference. And professionally as well, if you need any help, or if somebody asks me, oh, how do you do this drug, do you have a policy around drug administration? I can share that. I can share my experience. I even have a group for any clinical queries. If you have any clinical cases to discuss, I have a group here. The people share it in an open platform. And that's what I want to provide that to the students as well, an open platform to debate and talk about it, about improving practice in India. And yes, that's my ultimate vision.
Okay. So we have few minutes. I mean, I'll just take 2 minutes to wind up the show, and then we can stop recording and then continue with our regular short chat session. Thank you, Thippe. It was a pleasure talking to you. And what we get to hear from him is about caring. And caring is actually more than loving in terms of, it's not an sensual or emotional response that we are looking for. So caring is something extremely important. And as far as education goes in nursing, recently the trend is actually to start measuring or evaluating students for caring behaviors. So if you look around for research on measuring caring behavior, measuring attitude in nursing, measuring caring in nursing was a very hard thing. But now we have actually scales by which we can include in student evaluations to improve the caring attitude. So for example, whether they are listening to patients, just their body language. So we can include it in an evaluation form so that we can motivate students to become, we can make it positively a point to ensure that nursing students become caring. So caring is something extremely important, and caring shows in every way that we do. So the relationships that we have had, or the inspiration that we have been for each other, when there is somebody raising your hand, yes, we will give you a chance to talk, but your name, I cannot call you Kali Billy or something like this. Please put proper names for yourself. So we need to make sure that we are in touch, relationships, communication, moving out of our comfort zone to do something extra. That extra bit is what I want. I'm glad that Thippe is doing, and I hope this is something that everybody will learn from. People who go abroad. I also have this philosophy that it is not about going abroad. It's about what you can give back to the community, in spite of being wherever you are. So, Chris, if you can help me put off Facebook, please, or whoever can do.